Welcome back to my cave, once again, humans. This one's gonna be a little embarrassing, to be honest. There's this one fan game that combines a popular video game with a popular cartoon, and I've kind of been addicted to it for the past month or so, even to the point of starting over multiple times just to get the good ending. I remember I used to play games based on this franchise all the time. Nowadays, I kinda don't really like the franchise, but I mean, I do still have some nostalgia for it. But the cartoon, that's where the embarrassing part comes from. I've not really seen much of this cartoon. I've seen a few episodes, and it's a cute show. I can see its appeal, but it's not really my demographic. Then again, how many men wanted to admit they liked this franchise? I'm gonna be honest though, I'm going into the story of this game not knowing that much about the show. So if I act like I don't know much about the characters or anything that's going on, it's because I've only really seen 2 episodes of this show. That being said, I'm always looking for action-oriented games starring non-human characters. And even if the main stars are not among my favorite animals, it's still something different, something unique. And the game has a character creator, which the video games never had. The video games never really had the amount of character customization this fan game has, and honestly, I think that is pretty neat. Alright, time to rip the band-aid off. Time to show you the big epic crossover I'm talking about. Created by Ziggy Lung Studios, this is... Yep, that's right, it's a My Little Pony game. Basically, what you're seeing right now is a recreation of the intro from CastleVania Order of Ecclesia, but with My Little Pony characters. And yeah, that's the other franchise. It's a CastleVania My Little Pony Friendship is Magic crossover. And like I said, I don't know much about My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It's not really a show I've watched very often. Like I said, only 2 episodes. But I'll admit, I did find the couple of episodes I did watch kinda cute. Not something I'd watch regularly, but like I said, I can see the appeal. Like I said, the game has a surprising amount of character customization, as well as some challenge customization too. Let's not go so nutso right now. Frankly, I want to play as an elemental wizard. I kind of like doing challenge runs, and wanted to see if I could beat the game with just an ice mage. I don't know why. Mages that only use one element are intriguing to me. Anyway, select the hairstyle, which, like I said, kinda neat. CastleVania never really had character customization. There was always one set character you could use. Or multiple, depending on how many characters there were, but no character customization. You can even customize their cutie mark, which is kinda neat. Since this is an ice mage, I want something that looks icy. And thankfully the cutie mark creation's pretty simple. Anyway, we start with a basic story that I don't know if this is related to the show or not, but returning to life time and again since ancient times, the Lord of Chaos Discord has driven ponies to terror when Discord set his sights on Equestria. 2 regal sisters, Celestia and Luna, fought him in the shadows, wielding the elements of harmony. Through their efforts, Ponykind avoided darkness, securing prosperity. But shortly afterwards, Equestria was once again thrown into peril when the changelings infiltrated Cantor, because of the power that the Queen had drained, and not even Celestia and Luna were. Seriously, just play the full game. If you want to know the story, I can't keep this up. Start out with a short little tutorial section. Nothing major, nothing really challenging, just learning the controls. You start out with some pretty powerful equipment, but you lose them almost immediately. So, whoa, okay. I don't think that was supposed to happen, but woo! After losing your equipment, you go and talk to Lady What's-Her-Face, and, there it is! After that, talk to Luna for a bonus prize, and talk to the guard to get your starting gear. And then it is off to adventure. And here is where I'm gonna be laying down a few ground rules. For this playthrough, I'm gonna try my best to get the good ending, so expect spoilers. Though, if you are stuck on a certain spot of the game and don't know what you need to do to get the good ending, you can watch this video and find out. But if you want to learn yourself, you might want to click off. No major rules, any equipment you want, and any support skill you want, but your only attack skills have to be ice magic. There are 5 ice spells in the game, and we'll go over them as we play the game. And that's about it. Oh yeah, and I want to keep this video at a reasonable length, so I'm gonna cut out anything I don't think is important. And with that, let's get on with it. The first spell you're likely going to get in the ice category is Ice Needle, and this might actually be the best ice spell in the game. It's a really high damaging spell as long as you hold down the button. Plus it pairs extremely well with the support skill Artis Sanguinis, but more on that later. The only problem is you kinda gotta hold the spell down to really get the full potential, and sometimes there's not that many opportunities to just stand in place and hold the spell down. But when you do get the opportunity, oh boy, it is powerful. As for the levels, they start out pretty linear. They don't really get expansive until, like, the meat of the game, but more on that later, too. Eventually, you get to the first boss in the game, and... oh, that was easy. Yeah, the first boss is weak to ice, and Ice Needle just annihilates the Allura Oon. Also weak to ice are the Will-O-Wisps in this stage. They are fire-based enemies, so fire heals them, but ice just wrecks through them. Good thing I'm not playing as a fire mage. Yeah, I tried that, and it was kind of a nightmare. But, we'll get to that later as well. Eventually you get to this area, which has creatures called Wendigos. They sometimes drop ice-related capes, but they're stingy sometimes. Also, they absorb ice attacks, so melee attacks are what you're gonna have to use here. But hey, at least you can find those brown chests that often have money and healing items in them. And the red chests often have important items. Kinda useful. And, if you got a certain item, you can also find blue chests. They have really good stuff in them. Eventually, you fight the first main boss in the game, the Griffin. She's pretty easy too, but it takes a little more thought to beat her. She's actually one of the simpler main bosses though. Her attacks are straightforward, but once you figure them out, they're not too bad. She summons this whirlwind, which, just allows you to fire projectiles at her, I guess. I don't know. At the end of the stages, you get money based on achievements you've accomplished, like only taking one hit during the boss. After that, it's back to Lady What's-Her-Face, and she introduces you to the shopkeeper of this game, Filthy Rich, a character I have absolutely no knowledge on. The next stage is Foggy Bottom Bay, and this stage has a pretty annoying gimmick of swamp water you can't get stuck in, or else you'll have to mash the jump button to get out. It's kind of annoying, to be honest. Not helping are these dang balloon enemies. Ugh. However, you might have picked up the second ice spell from Filthy Rich, Volgrando. It is an AoE spell and kind of the closest thing to an anti-air spell, which you are going to find out the Ice Mage does not get. If you're only doing ice magic, then you do not get a decent anti-air spell. So, Volgrando is about as good as it gets. And it has decent AoE and damage. Not a bad spell. Eventually, you come across another admittedly easy mid-boss, but compared to the Alraun, he's kinda tough. Figuratively speaking. Nah, your first real challenge in the game is the second main boss, the Hydra. Fortunately, the Ice Mage's Ice Needles can rip through those heads pretty easily, but you gotta stand in the right spot. They'll snap at you and spit poison, but that's just a warm-up for the second phase of this boss, and this is the really hard part. This turns into an auto-scrolling section where you have to dodge raining acid spit while your platforms shrink. I tell ya, I've lost a ton of lives on this section, and this is only the second boss. Especially difficult is when you get to the Bone Pillar. Yeah, and there's also enemies you have to deal with while you are dodging the Hydra and trying to find some ground. Overwhelming to say the least, but with enough perseverance, you can defeat the Hydra. And that is going to set the pace for what's to come. Stage 3 takes you to Cloudsdale, where you are accompanied by Derpy Hooves, and I at least know who that is. Mostly because of the
I just don't know what went wrong
meme more than anything else, but I at least recognize the character, so basically Derpy just keeps you from falling into bottomless pits, but that doesn't really come up that often. By now, Icicle Spears and Volgrando should be a bit more powerful if you've leveled them up to 100. And that is another neat feature, that you can upgrade your attacks by using them enough times. And using them against, I want to say this character's name is Iron Will. Like I said, I don't watch the show, but he's not too bad either. Although I think I've seen him before, and wasn't he even more muscular than that? Whatever. Honestly, there's not many gimmicks in this stage other than spike pits and the bottomless pits that hardly even matter because Derpy Hooves is just gonna save you every time you fall into one. There is one interesting thing though. During this section, you'll see a muffin on the ground. Whatever you do, do not grab the muffin. Grabbing the muffin locks you out of the best ending. I'll show you why in a little bit. But first, let's go to the main boss of this level. Like the Alraun, Ursa Minor is mostly a stationary boss, except this guy's actually got some meat on his bones. In addition to having a hefty health bar, he's also got some pretty strong and hard to dodge moves. You might have to memorize how to beat every single attack of him, because he's got a lot of them, and even though a lot of them leave him open, remember, this guy has a massive health bar. This boss completely takes that into account. Later on, he summons this ball of fire, and you have to dodge that while dodging the rest of his attacks. Not easy, and you might need a health water for it. Still, with enough perseverance, you might just be able to beat him. And I have to admit, he's kinda got a cute death animation. Look at him in the stars. Happy Bear! Now, remember when I told you not to pick up that muffin? Here's why. If you don't pick up the muffin, then Derpy Hooves gets a little snack that energizes her and allows her to travel back with you. You wanna know what happens if you do pick up the muffin and clear the course? Well, let's see how many Gaming Magic 13 clips I can cram into this when I tell you that if you pick up the muffin, then Derpy Hooves frickin' dies. No, I am not lying to you. If you pick up the muffin, Derpy Hooves frickin' dies. Quite the shocker, huh? Yeah, we'll get used to it, because there's gonna be quite a few of those moments in this. Up next is Ghastly Gorge, and this is the level where you meet these frickin' bitter flies. These annoying, invisible little skulls with butterfly wings that are really hard to detect, and since the Ice Mage doesn't get the best anti-air, she's gonna have to rely on Vol Grando to get rid of those frickin' blighters. But do you know what you can't get rid of? The quarry eels. These massive eels that pop out of the holes and make this, "Oh yeah, I'm so cool" expression whenever they go back in. It's kinda charming. And as far as I know, they are unkillable. Well, why would you want to kill anything that awesome? Now, let's talk about spell number 3, Icicle Spear. You can summon 2 at a time per slot, and they pierce through enemies, meaning they can hit enemies behind them. They do a decent amount of damage, too. Despite being simple projectiles, they come quite in handy when fighting a lot of weak enemies. Well, ones that are in a row, anyway. But they can also be pretty good at damaging armor. Another mid-boss, the Werepony. Not sure if this is a character from the show, but considering they designed this character to look like the werewolves from Symphony of the Night, I'm going to venture a guess and say this is an original character. Like I said, haven't watched the show. Just as with Cloudsdale, as well as the next couple of levels, there is something you need to achieve in order to get the good ending. In this level, you have to give sages to the guards. I haven't seen what happens if you don't give sages to the guards, but there's this training hall you unlock if you do, so I'm going to assume you don't complete the training hall if you don't give sages to all the guards. But there's a trick to the first one. The first of 2 guards that you are supposed to give the sage to will be down one of 2 corridors. Basically, there's this one corridor you go down with one of these dang roses that are kind of annoying if you're not an Ice Mage, but are pretty easy to take care of if you are. And then there's this corridor. The guard is going to be in which corridor you go down second. The second one's in the last section, where you have to go across the entire map to get the sage before going back and giving the sage to the guard who's at the start of the section. And after that, you fight the main boss of the level, David Bowie's The Diamond Dog. 3 more characters I don't recognize. But basically, they're like the fake trio from Symphony of the Night. Even though Symphony of the Night's fake trio didn't have any strong arms like that third guy, the big guy, I don't know what any of their names are. I think they have stereotypical dog names like Spot, Fido, and Rover. I don't know. But whatever you do, do not save the small one for last. Remember, the Ice Mage does not get good anti-air, and you really need that anti-air to beat the small one in his third phase. The more Diamond Dogs you take out, the stronger the remaining ones will be. And the big guy is really not that hard to deal with, so make sure to deal with him last. Once defeated, the Diamond Dogs want you to spare them, and they will tell you the location of the next level if you do. Appolution Mines. Even though this actually takes place in a desert, but let's not think about that. Instead, let's think about the next spell I want to show you guys. Cocytus, named after the icy river of hell. This spell summons a ton of icy shards in a pretty wide cone. I guess you could call it area control, but really it's better for bosses because each shard does individual damage. Frankly, I don't use this one much, but I'll try to fit it in when I can. Each challenge towards the good ending gets a little more complicated. This time around, the challenge is spread across all the areas, not just one half. It's a three-parter, and for the first part, you have to find 2 switches to open a gateway so this little purple pony can go through. One thing I find interesting is that you'll often come across upgraded enemies, and this is the first stage where you do. You'll fight upgraded oons that shoot out large spikes, as well as the skeleton soldiers that now shoot projectiles. The mid-boss is Alotl. Sorry if I'm butchering that, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, I'm just using my best judgment. Anyway, this guy's actually kinda tricky. He has some pretty decent attacks, although this attack is kinda dumb. Personally, I'm actually kinda surprised at how often I get tripped up by the move where he shoots those bricks at you. It's hard to time the jump, you'd be surprised. Defeat the Alotl, and then you'll come across this thing again. Only now it's a normal enemy, and still pretty easy to beat. But you'll also come across the Chupacabra, which are based off the cave trolls. I'm actually kind of glad they decided to name them Chupacabra instead of cave trolls. It's honestly a far more clever name. Next we get to a part that made me go,
What? How would you ever know to do that?
The Eye of Decay doesn't tell you it's there, and there's no hint whatsoever telling you that hidden entrance is there. But after that, you free Apple Bloom, and then it's off to the main boss this level, and thankfully he's pretty easy considering he is weak to ice. Sure, you don't have any anti-air, but it doesn't really take much to take him down. You do have to remember to free the third little girl in the little web sack on the far right. But you can just take down the giant tarantula first, then go after the sack. Honestly, this is the perfect excuse to use Cocytus. Spell really was made for bosses like this. And there she went. If you manage to free all 3 of them, they'll give you a map that lets you go to the skeleton cave, which we'll get to later. Next, it's off to Manhattan, and this is the final mini-level of the game. We're gonna get into the meat of the game pretty soon. But first, let me show you this stage's gift. You need to wear the holy glasses in order to find the dark spirits that are hidden throughout the level, and you need to find and destroy all of them. By now you're likely to have the 5th and final ice spell in the game, unfortunately, Ice Fang. This is a pretty high damaging spell with some decent AoE. It can be used as a decent shield against smaller and weaker enemies if you combine 2 of them together, but like with Cocytus, I don't really use this spell that much. I don't know, I just feel like Ice Needle, Volgrando, and Icicle Spear are overall more useful. No, but like with Cocytus, I'll try to fit it into my playthrough if I can. It can be quite useful for the mid-boss of this level, and this one's a little different. Sometimes the mid-boss will do this, and as far as I know... Ha! Jump scare! Ah! Anyway, you're sent to this dimension where you have to dodge Mr. Heads and find the end. Little skull's kinda creepy. Honestly, I'm not the hugest fan of bosses that are just one big giant maze. I mean, I'm already playing giant mazes during the main levels. Do the bosses need to be mazes too? Still, eventually after you escape the maze enough times and melt away his HP with Ice Fang, or whatever you're using in a non-challenge run, down he goes. And next we fight what was the bane of my frickin' existence when I was trying to do this with a fire mage. The Will-O-Frickin' Wisps. You can't hurt them with fire magic. Your only real option is to use books because they ignore all defenses. Well, almost all of them. Thankfully, I'm not playing as a fire mage, I'm playing as an ice mage, and ice mages have no problem dealing with these will-o-wisps, for the most part. Even then, the main boss of this level, the dragon, is a pain and a half. Even though he is also weak to ice, it doesn't change the fact that a lot of his moves are quite difficult to dodge. And he takes a little more to beat than the spider. The dragon also likes to overwhelm you by summoning will-o-wisps all the time, and... oh boy, this was a nightmare when I tried to do this with fire. I do not want to relive that. Momentarily, the dragon will shift to a background phase. The attacks are different, and so are the hitboxes. But this isn't really phase 2 because she alternates between these two. Once again, those dang will-o-wisps and a lot of her attacks take up a big chunk of the screen. Wait, is it a he or a she? Because I'm actually not sure. But with enough perseverance, the dragon, whatever he or she is called, will eventually go down. But it took everything I had. If you manage to destroy every single dark spirit in the level, you unlock Zecora's hut, where you can do little side missions for buffs and whatnot. And a couple missions are required to beat for unlocking the Bat Pony character. Yep, there's even unlockable characters in this, and after you're done talking with Zecora, you find out that, what? Princess Celestia is the villain?
What a twist!
Also,
there it is! There it is!
Princess Celestia takes away the 6 elements of harmony, and now you are off to the big level of the game. This is where most of the game will take place. Canterlot Castle. It starts out simple enough. You fight some upgraded enemies, some upgraded mudmen, although why they aren't mud ponies, I have no idea. They're like the only humanoid enemy in the game. Then you bump into the quote-unquote great and powerful Trixie, more on her later. You jump into a room with a bunch of jumpin' jackalopes, upgraded axe armors, and bugbears. At least as they were called in some of the other games. Honestly, the enemies are pretty tough here. This is only the start of the castle. It gets much bigger later on. Frickin' A though, do I hate these bugbears. They can be anywhere on the screen, and it can be quite difficult trying to dodge their electrical tail. Plus, their eye is quite big and hard to dodge too. And they're pretty common in this part of the castle. And honestly, I have no idea why they are called bugbears in CastleVania. It's like taking this one demon with a lantern, calling it Losoth, then calling it something that actually makes sense before calling it Gravekeeper. Something that's totally not going to be relevant later. Other annoying enemies include the flying dancers, which aren't too hard to take out. But then you got Persephone, who might throw kunais at you if you're not careful. Like right there. And it's hard to react to those. You kind of got to stand in a specific spot to really deal with her attacks. Not long into the castle, you fight the first of many bosses, Cerberus. Well, he's certainly not the joke he was in Symphony of the Night. In fact, he's actually quite awesome. His 3 heads each have different elemental abilities: fire, ice, and light. Honestly, they did a really good job on this guy. He's actually got some really cool moves. As far as difficulty goes, he makes a pretty decent introduction boss to the castle. He's not super hard, but he's no pushover either. But if you have Artis Sanguinus, remember when I brought that spell up a while ago? Artis Sanguinus heals you based on the amount of damage your skills use. And here's a spot where Ice Fang really comes in handy. I meant for dealing with that Ice Shard attack, but it can be pretty good in conjunction with Artis Sanguinus. But not quite as good as Ice Needle. That is my go-to to pair with Artis Sanguinus. And it's gonna really save your bacon later on. Once you defeat this formidable first boss, he goes back to whence he came. After that, you can explore the next area, or go back and heal. Oh, now they play Iron Blue Intentions? Why didn't they play that in Manhattan? Whatever. Mostly complaining because Iron Blue Intentions from Portrait of Ruins is one of my favorite CastleVania themes. Next to Tragic Prince and Wicked Child, anyway. Next, we enter the gardens. Not much to say about this area. There's no bosses, except for Cerberus, if that counts. But there are a bunch of upgraded enemies. And of course, have those stupid stone roses again, even though they're not too bad with the Ice Mage. There is this one gate you have to flip 2 switches to open, but other than that, upgraded enemies and a few new ones, not too much to say. The flying armor can be a pain to deal with. They like to float out of your reach, and like I said, the Ice Mage doesn't have great coverage, so yeah. Later on, you have a new status ailment to deal with, Weaken, which slows you down and weakens your stats, but isn't too bad otherwise. But let's not forget about those pesky bitterflies again. And sometimes you'll even come across the Spider-Man meme. And let me tell you, it can be a massive pain having to deal with the Changeling and whatever else is in the room. Those Changelings are no pushovers. After you kill a couple more Iron Wills, it's off to this area. Yeah, there isn't much of a theme with some of the areas in this castle. Just go with it. There's actually quite a bit of castle to go through before you actually get to the next boss. And you're gonna go through different locales. And annoying enemies aplenty. Including, wait, where are these things? Wait, that's not a CastleVania enemy. It almost reminds me of that thing that follows Zato 1 around in Guilty Gear. Am I pronouncing that right? Whatever. Traverse through the castle long enough and... What the? Okay. I know this isn't really relevant to most people, but I kind of want to go on a mini rant right now. In CastleVania Symphony of the Night, there was a creature called Lossoth, which was basically depicted as a small man with a lantern that shoots fire, and this name really doesn't make much sense. The Lossoth are a race of people from Lord of the Rings who live in an icy region. Don't really get the connection. But in Aria of Sorrow, a similar creature appeared named Bifron, named after a demon from hell who lights magical fires above graves called Bifrons. This name made a lot more sense. They should have just stuck with this name, but instead in Portrait of Ruins, they just called them Light Keepers. Sure, why not? Bifrons was actually a cool name, but no, let's change it to something lamer. And apparently, the creature was called Bifron in all 3 games in Japan, so I don't get it. Once traversing through the underground caverns, you finally get to face your next boss, a hateful little butthole named Tasselworm. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. This thing killed me so many times. Those globs are harder to dodge than that stupid hand-tail monkey's bricks are, and every attack he does causes weaken. He has this one attack where he coils along the ground, and I am not sure how you're supposed to dodge this without the ability to flow it. Good thing I'm a unicorn. Too bad I still get tripped up by those dang globs. Ugh. Then he'll start ripping through the ground and crisscrossing every which way, and it's kinda unpredictable. I'm not sure how to dodge that attack very efficiently. Frickin' globs! Come on, dang it. No. Again and again. Well, obviously I'm not strong enough to beat this guy, so let's keep going further into the caverns till we get to this tower. Here you'll find a good chunk of money, as well as, well, I guess you could consider it a mid-boss. Up here, you will fight the creature, and you can basically cheese him by teleporting to the other side, because most of his attacks only affect one side of the screen. This guy's a picnic compared to Tasselworm. It's kinda sad picking on the poor guy. But once you beat him, you get a solar fragment, and this thing is going to become very important for beating the game. Okay, let's see if I can't teach this bully worm a lesson. Alright, just gotta keep an eye on him. Teleport through that. Use ice fangs. Teleport out of the globules, come on. Did I beat him? Well, I didn't do anything. Finally beat him. Hopefully the next boss is gonna be easier. Anyway, I got the skeleton key picked up, and that's gonna be useful later. I know I'm saying a lot of we'll get to this later in this video, but it is what it is. Once you make it out of the caverns, you come across the castle's treasury. And some graphic clashing from Circle of the Moon for the Game Boy Advance, for some reason. Oh, and the Zap Bats from the Super NES game Super Castlevania 4. To guess.
Money.
Lots of money in this room. After that, it's up through the chapel where the Wendigos still won't give me that stupid cape. But hey, at least we get some more cha-ching on our way, and we get a nice shot of the moon. It's actually quite lovely. I mean, the graphics in this game are a mixed bag, but when the graphics are good, they're good. considering they're ripped from various CastleVania games, but still. Eventually, though, after enough traversal through the castle, you'll come across this area. There's not much striking about this area, but, another boss room. But where is the boss? There's a chest here, and, oh, wow. Turns out this gem is the boss. Like with previous bosses, this boss has plenty of tricks up its sleeve. Ones you are gonna have to memorize and figure out how to dodge, and like with previous bosses, it is not easy, because there's a lot you have to remember. All these spirits are coming at you from every which angle, and you gotta figure out the best way to dodge all of them. Eventually, this thing will appear, and that typically means it's crunch time, and, what? Yeah, there's a lot of those, and, I have to be honest, I have no idea how the other ponies are supposed to dodge those, full screen attacks. Sure, the unicorn can, cause it can teleport dodge, but what about the others? Anyway, the boss isn't too bad once you know what you're doing, and you can rip through it with those needles. And that's gonna be a running theme with most of the bosses, where they're not particularly harder than what you've already fought. They just have different attacks that you need to figure out. Eventually, you'll beat the Siren Gem, and then you'll move on to the Sanctuary, which is kind of the hub world of the castle. Here you can heal, use the teleporter, and talk to Filthy Rich again, but you can also activate these statues to refight bosses if you manage to beat them the first time, only taking a certain amount of hits. Luna basically gives you the rundown, tells you need to get the 6 elements of harmony from the frozen wilderness, but you need the skeleton key to get into the dungeon, as well as the Jewel of Open. Fortunately, we picked up the skeleton key from the Tasselworm, so we got that crossed off. And thanks to Luna, you also get the Jewel of Open, so now the castle's your oyster. Anyway, let's return to the entrance area, because there's a door we can open with that jewel that leads to one more solar fragment. Unfortunately, it's guarded by none other than John Jacob Dweebenheimer Schmidt himself, Dullahan. And this guy is a pain and a half compared to the creature. You have to deal with this hopping armor while wailing away at that head that's constantly slinging spells your way. And you can whack away at that armor all you want, it won't do you any good. That thing is impervious to everything. You gotta just dodge the stupid armor while going after the head, and yeah, normally I'd say with enough perseverance we can beat him, but he's a little too tough for me right now, so I'm gonna go explore him. And there's that Zato One Shadow again, and him and those stupid bitterflies are guarding a map to another mini level. Yeah, I know I said Manhattan was the last one, but I lied. Before we check that area, let's do a little more exploring. Beyond the jeweled door before Cerberus, you'll get to come across these hallways. And eventually you'll come across the quote-unquote great and powerful Trixie. Such devotion! You put your own life on the line to bask in Trixie's radiance! Trixie's a little special because she'll let you combine items into more powerful items. But first you gotta lend her one of your healing waters before she can actually lend you her services.
She's such a butthole.
After a little training, though, I think I'm ready to take on John Jacob Liebenheimer Schmidt. Unfortunately, Dullahan is strong against my cold magic, so can't really rely on that, unfortunately. Plus, I had to use special healing water that Filthy Rich sometimes gives you after clearing Manhattan. But with enough perseverance, I get another solar fragment, and I am so glad the other two don't require boss fights. I already got one of the other ones off screen, and sorry, but I forgot where I got it from. You might have to play the game yourself to find out. Now, let's check out that new area on the map, Forgotten Garden. There's a bunch of upgraded enemies here, including an upgraded Olraun, an upgraded werewolf, and an upgraded Chupacabra. But this area also has something real super special. A secret area. And if you climb all the way to the top, you get the trusty sidearm of the Blue Bomber himself. But that's a Capcom game, not a Konami game. The point of this level is to clear the barrier leading to the boss of this area. You do that by going around the garden and hitting this switch at the end of the other pathway. After that, you come across Starlight Glimmer, who will challenge you to a duel for a really powerful item. Not much to comment on. As usual, figure out the attack pattern, dodge her attacks, but she's got some pretty nasty ones. That's something you're gonna have to get used to this late in the game. She also has this
Be still!
move where if you strike her at a certain point, she'll summon these daggers. That's not too hard to deal with, but it is an interesting attack. The main butt munch aspect of this fight is the fact that she has 3 phases. If you deal enough damage and break her shield, she will heal herself and then she'll summon a clone. She does this twice, and every time it's annoying. Eventually, though, you'll find the magic combination to beat her, and she will surrender the staff. I'm also going to assume the weapon varies depending on what pony you're playing as. Now it is time to enter the dungeon. Here is where you will find, more ectoplasms, stupid traps. Did I mention how much I hate the ectoplasms? No? Well, I'm doing it now. Once you traverse the treacherous dungeon, you will come across this painting near the bottom. And inside the painting, you will find another powerful boss monster, and by now you know the drill. This one is King Sombra, a dark monster, and I'm gonna be honest, being a unicorn that can float really helps against this guy, since he has a lot of ground-trailing moves and summons those Zaro 1 shadows. The only problem with the unicorn is that they are quite slow. Seriously, I never realized how slow they were until I equipped the speed up rune and the saddle that increases their speed. I'm like, were they always this slow? I almost don't like wearing it because it just makes me realize how slow the unicorn is. Not to discredit King Sombra, he's as tough a Mother Hubbard as they come. He's constantly filling the screen with attacks, and it can be pretty overwhelming to dodge them. But eventually, you beat him, like you do with every other boss. Again, it's all about figuring out the patterns. All that's left is to smack the crystal until all the elements of harmony come out. It'll take a few hits to do it, but it's not too bad. I mean, there's no challenge to it, just break open the ice. That's all you gotta do. And sadly, that's the last time you're gonna hear that little jingle. Now it is time to climb right back up through the dungeon, go back through the caverns, and maybe you'll come across another jeweled door that leads you to another map to another mini level. Even when you think you've seen everything, this game is still throwing surprises at you, and I really gotta commend this game for that. There's a reason I'm doing a video on a My Little Pony fan game of all things. And just, I don't know why. I feel like this game is more addicting than it has any right to be. After that, bring the Elements of Harmony back to Luna, and she will mark a spot on the map that you're supposed to take them to. But, before we do that, let's check out that mini level, shall we? Before entering the heights of the tower, you get these hint books that tell you about certain items you can get if you meet certain conditions when fighting certain bosses. But I'm not worried about that because none of that is required for the good ending. And like with Forgotten Garden, you're mostly fighting upgraded enemies here, including upgraded mid-bosses, an upgraded Manticore, and an upgraded Minotaur too. But none of that will prepare you for the main boss of this level, Daybreak. I love the Nest of Evil graphics, even though I think the Nest of Evil graphics from Portrait of Ruins were actually taken from a Shaman King game for the GBA, since I did see the same background in Portrait of Ruins in Shaman King, but whatever. This guy's a real Mother Hubbard, he is. Even though he is weak to ice, that doesn't help you as much as you'd think. Always having to dodge those stupid fire wave attacks, and he's got a lot of screen fillers that are really hard to dodge. Take these lasers, for example. The stuff of nightmares. Sure, he may be weak to ice, but here's the thing. Catzelworm was weak to ice, and he wasn't easy either. And that is something I noticed about ice magic in this game. A surprising amount of enemies, including a lot of bosses, are weak to ice. Each element has its strengths and weaknesses, with ice basically being the powerful type that has poor utility. Dark magic is kind of the inverse of that, where a lot of enemies are strong against dark magic, but dark magic has incredibly good utility. Maybe the best out of any element. Of course, the Pegasus can use wind magic, and unfortunately there's only 5 actual elements in this game: fire, ice, lightning, dark, and light. There actually isn't an earth or wind element. Earth just does impact damage, and wind does ice damage. And wind has better utility than ice. Of course, wind magic can only be used by Pegasuses. If you got Artis Sanguinis, you pair it with Ice Needle, you can get a pretty decent draining spell there. Believe me, you're gonna need Artis Sanguinis in this game. Well, that's another boss I'm not strong enough to fight yet, so let's take on the Skeleton Cave. Yeah, I haven't really showed off this area yet, but figure now's a good time to do it. There's not much to the Skeleton Cave, just a series of gauntlets you have to go through. No big deal. By this point, you've already fought all these enemies and know how to deal with them. The final room, however, is a good old tag team match with Minotaur and Werewolf, just like in Symphony of the Night. And these two can be pretty tough if you're low level. But, oh man, you have not seen tough. You have not seen tough. Once you reach a certain point in the game, Daring Do will appear to take you to the second Skeleton Cave, and obviously this one is much harder. Not only are the enemies much stronger this time, but a lot of them are a little less familiar. It is actually very much possible you have not come across these armor lords yet, and they are nasty. You're gonna need a book in order to beat these guys. And Artist Sanguinus and Ice Needle. But everything in this dungeon prepares you in absolutely no way for the final room in this dungeon. And I don't want to relive the trauma right now. We'll get to that later. We will get to that later. Let's try out the other area I kinda brushed off. The one where after I beat the diamond dogs and saved all the guards, I unlocked the training hall. And late in the game, you meet this cute little guy named Spitfire. He'll take you to a second training hall, but I haven't even beaten the first training hall, so let's do that first. There will be no teleportation, sliding, or double jumping here. Only your raw skills are allowed. Oh yeah, and no attacks or magic. Just jumping and general platforming, and that's all you have to guide you through the training hall. That might be why I don't come here that often. I kinda wanna use all those cool abilities like teleportation and whatnot, but you can't do that here. All you get's your normal jump. That's it. It takes a little bit of practice, but the regular version's not too bad if you know what you're doing. Just gotta aim there. Good. And there is a lot of precision involved, but like I said, it's not too bad. There's only 3 rooms of torture, thankfully. It's not that long. And, oh wow, I beat it in under a minute. Yeah, and you can get some pretty good prizes if you do it that fast. But even to this day, I have not beaten the advanced course. It is a little bit harder. You have to dodge all these guillotines, and remember, you can't use special teleportation abilities, because that's cheating. Then you get these electrical beams instead of the fire beams. And sadly, I don't think I've ever made it past this area, because you have to dodge these lightning beams and platform. Yeah, I just don't have the gumption for that. Before we take on Daybreaker again, let's get ourselves acquainted with the rules, because we needed a Fairly Odd Parents reference in this game. But you know what? The rules rules. You get this book from the Forgotten Gardens, one of the red chests. And this thing can reflect certain projectiles, and most bosses have projectiles you can deflect, even this late in the game. And paired with Artist Sanguinus, yep, even those projectiles fired back can heal you. And look at all the projectiles this guy summons. Useful. You want the rules. It's gonna make the next few bosses a lot easier. At least this and another one coming up. Snuff out that firebrand, and you get yourself Star Swirl. Like Mega Buster, it is an alternate spell/ability you can use. But since we're only using ice magic, you're gonna have to look that up yourself. I don't know why, I kinda wanted to do a challenge run, see if I could beat this game with just ice magic. And weapons. Next, we get to the boss that completely ruined my Fire Mage run. So you meet Luna in this designated area, Princess Buttmunch shows up, and then this happens. The spirit monster from before possesses Luna, and now you have to fight Nightmare Moon. And this character is pretty much the death of this game. Once again, the rules is super handy at taking her on. Like with previous bosses, just figure out her patterns and you can beat her. Piece of cake, right?
Wrong!
Once you do enough damage to her, you enter Blood Moon phase. In this phase, her attacks get stronger and harder to dodge. And it won't take much for her to kill you. But here's the thing, it doesn't take much for you to kill her either. So what's the problem? Well, you see this thing she does with the stars spinning around her? Yeah, that is an indicator that she is being broken from the spell. There are 4 stars surrounding her. You have to survive her entire onslaught till all 4 stars disappear. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. You have to survive. You can't kill her. Because if you finish her off, you kill her. Kill her. And you know what that means, right? That's right, you kill her, you get the bad ending. And this is what destroyed my Fire Mage run. Because I saved after killing her. And this brings up one issue I kinda have with this game. Bad endings are punishing. Now, believe it or not, I used to play a lot of CastleVania games before I lost the stomach for Human Zoo Syndrome. And in my experience, they would oftentimes have bad endings. But there wasn't really much punishment for getting a bad ending. All that means is that you have to reload your previous state and try and figure out how to get the good ending. Usually no harm, no foul. Basically, you cannot lock yourself out of the good ending. If you mess up, go back to your previous save and try and figure out how to not mess up. Usually you have to clear all the map, find a certain item, equip a certain item, that sort of thing. It's never really demanding. But in this game, if you do something wrong and you want the good ending, tough. You better not have saved after you did that thing wrong. Because that means if you want the good ending, you have to start the whole game over. The game doesn't end if you did something wrong or haven't done everything like it does in CastleVania. The game keeps going. You let Derpy Hooves die, the game goes on. You let the guards die, the game goes on. You let the Cutie Mark Crusaders die, the game goes on. You don't release all the spirits, the game goes on. And if you kill Princess Luna, that's right, the game goes on. To be fair, the game isn't as big or long as most CastleVania games are, but still, if you mess up, the game goes on. Oh no, I'm not going back this time to get stronger. I'm gonna beat her right here, right now, and I'm gonna do it without killing her. Come on, Nightmare Moon! Come on, that was the last heart. Please, let that be it. Please. Was that it? Oh. I did it. I actually did it. Whew. So anyway, if you manage to survive her onslaught without killing her, use the elements of harmony to heal her. She will be wounded but alive. And that is your ticket to the good ending. Oh, but game we've got to spare, my friends. There's still 2 bosses to fight at Sakura's tree hut, and we haven't even finished the castle yet. Both of these bosses are a pain in the rear. Vampire, which looks like a vampiric version of Fluttershy, is like that one bug summoning boss from Dawn of Sorrow and Portrait of Ruins. Forgot what his name was. And there is a lot to dodge in this fight, and not that many chances to get your licks in. And because the Ice Mage has poor utility, good luck! As usual though, with enough perseverance I managed to beat her. The other boss, however, the Whip Memory, doesn't seem hard at first. After all, his attacks are quite simple and not that hard to dodge on their own. But he is rather quick, and sometimes likes to chain 3 attacks at a time. And let's not forget he also has these crush attacks, like the 100 Daggers, the Circling Axes, the Thunder of Dark, and the Holy Cross. But something enough perseverance and he goes down. Next, it's up to the clock tower, and my good lord, this is platforming hell here. Lots of spinning gears, lots of spikes everywhere. It is not wise to stay still anywhere on this map. Well, except here, I guess that's okay. Not helping is the fact that just about every enemy in this area is a flyer. They do not care about the rough terrain. They can just ignore it. You can't, and it's really annoying having to deal with all of these. Also, it took the game this long to introduce the frozen shades. Well, at least I get to test my magic out on a fellow cryomancer. That's kinda cool. I do kinda wish the frozen shades, or any of the shades, made that funny little death cry from Symphony of the Night. Honestly, I kinda wish there was more voice acting in general, but that's a nitpick. Climbing up the clock tower, you have to come across bloody ravens and Persephones. Also, you gotta keep your eye out for gears. You need to collect those to get to the final area of the game, as well as get the final solar fragment. And after climbing as high as you can go, you get to this absolute butthole, the great and powerful Trixie. She is a mage that uses 5 elements, specifically fire, ice, earth, which I already established is actually impact, but whatever, darkness, and light. Basically, she's a unicorn mage, and she uses the 5 unicorn mage magic classes. Well, the elemental ones anyway. And she's got some pretty strong attacks, mind you. The circling light spheres, for example, is a pain and a half. I'm not really sure how to consistently dodge this. And if you deal enough damage to her, she'll summon 2 elemental spells in a row. For example, if you survive her Raging Fire spell, then she will start summoning all these fire crosses. And you gotta keep track of all those orbs in order to dodge all the fire crosses. Or maybe after dodging her Rock Riot, you have to deal with circling stones that you have to sync with your movements in order to properly dodge them. And yeah, you're not getting your licks in that easily. But once you do even more damage, she'll throw in a third elemental attack. Thought the fire crosses were bad? These pillars are really unpredictable and hard to dodge. But you know the drill, figure out the attacks the best you can, and with enough perseverance... What did I do wrong this time? Oh, of course. Remember when I talked about those errands you have to do? Yeah, you have to find Trixie 3 different times and do 3 different errands. First, you have to give her water of life. Then you have to find her in the library and give her money. Then you have to find her in the caves and give her one of your levels. Are you kidding me?
She's such a butthole.
Also, you better combine your items right now while you can, because as far as I know, after you beat Trixie, you're not gonna get another chance to combine items into stronger items. So, if you wanna get them combined now, better do it now. So, what happens when you've done all that? Well, as you'd expect, a cutscene plays, telling you you did things right. Thankfully, this is the last instance in the game. Once you've done this one right, you're off to the good ending. There's nothing else you have to do as far as I know. Not gonna lie though, it actually feels kinda good humbling this butt munch. Alright, you're getting to the climax of the game now. Just find all the gears. Before we go to the final fights though, I did want to show some graphical goofs, like the pillars not lining up properly. And I also quite like how they changed all the human statues to pony statues. They don't look that great, but it gets the job done, and it's kinda charming, I'll admit. Hell, even the dummy in the training hall is made to look like a pony, as is the statue behind him. Nice. But, they missed one. But, before we take on the final bosses, I, kinda wanna clear the second skeleton dungeon, because, I'm worried I have to do that in order to unlock the foal. And, oh my god, this is a nightmare. The final challenge is you have to fight Dullahan and the creature at the same time. As you remember, the creature's not that hard to fight, but the one thing, he hits like a truck. It's also not as easy to simply jump over him because you have to deal with Dullahan now. And neither of these simply go down because both of them are strong against ice. This is a horrible challenge for ice here, especially since Dullahan really benefits from being in the air, which, need I remind you, ice does not get any good anti-air moves. And it's not like even reaching these two is a walk in the park since you have to deal with these final armor lords. 3 of them, to be exact, and they do not go down easily. Sure, the first one's the hardest, but it's still annoying. Dullahan was already practically 2 bosses in one, so now you basically got 3 bosses in one. So let's recap. 3 bosses, one of which is unkillable unless you kill one of the other bosses. One of them hits really hard, they're both strong against ice, one of them floats in the air, and there's a lot of attacks going on at a time! How are you expected to beat these guys? This is a boss where you need the water, and you need to be really wise about that water, too. Ugh. Come on! Frickin' Dullahan. I beat Dullahan! The creature should be easy. Come on. Just thread the needle. Thread the needle. The creature is easy as long as you keep to one side. Come on. Come on. I did it! Oh my god, I did it. The final bosses can't be this hard. They just can't be, right? There's no way the final bosses are this hard, right? Well, we'll find out. Anyway, I got this, I'm not sure what I just got. Let's see, a Scorpion's Medallion, Ancient Necklace, those random events to occur while attacking. Actually, this is a pretty strong item, I'm just not going to use it. Also, the creature doesn't actually make that noise when he dies in this game. I just think that voice from CastleVania Symphony of the Night is funny, so I added it. Alright, enough horsing around, no pun intended. Time for the final bosses. Make sure you come here with all 4 solar fragments, and then it is time to fight Queen Celestia. She trash talks you for a bit, and then you fight. Things start out surprisingly slow. She has some tricky attacks, but she's not very adamant on them. So, at first, this fight does not seem that hard. Until... What? So it wasn't Princess Celestia?
What a twist!
The longer the fight goes on, the more aggressive she gets and the harder the attacks are to dodge. And just, what the heck was that? That laser attack! In fact, she has a ton of really annoying laser attacks. Just look at this! Holy! Could this boss actually be harder than Dullahan and the creature?
No.
Actually, her attacks are surprisingly weak. Honestly, like a wet pool noodle compared to the creature. And if you beat those two, then Chrysalis really shouldn't be that hard. Sure, she has some annoying and hard to dodge attacks, but like I said, she's fairly weak. She doesn't do that much damage, so you should be fine if you've beaten the creature and Dullahan together. What sucks is that you don't even get to kill her when you defeat her. She just flies off. So good guy characters actually get to die, but not the villains. And it turns out that wasn't Princess Celestia, or Queen Celestia. Like I said, I don't watch the show. Assuming you did everything right, Princess Luna will come to accompany Celestia and open a gate to the next area. And okay, I lied about Trixie, but still. Get your healing in now before you head on to the final level of the game. Welcome to Discord's realm, the realm of chaos. This is where you will fight the strongest enemies yet. And you'll come across puzzles like this. You'll have to fight some bugbears. You come across floating chests like that you can loot. Once you figure out you can actually loot them, I didn't. Eventually you come across I guess what you could call the mid-boss of this level. But all it really is a gauntlet of enemies. Nothing major. You start with a powered Cowardly Lion, which isn't all that strong. Well, honestly, it's all enemies you fought before. Nothing really major. It all ends with a fight against the Shade Trio. Poison, Burning, and Frozen. But as usual, none of them are too hard to take down. Next you come across something a little more colorful, less evil, but chaotic nonetheless. Of course, it comes accompanied with these dang tricksters who are annoying because once again, that's right, the Ice Mage does not get any good anti-air. And trust me, that is going to be a problem beyond just this level. But after all that, you come across the final boss himself, the Master of Chaos, Sheogorath. I mean Discord. As you'd expect any final boss to be, this guy's a multi-parter. His attacks are gonna seem a little bit silly, but that's just Discord for you. One thing I kinda find neat about this boss is that sometimes he'll pull a gotcha on you if you try to jump over some of his attacks. I admit, that's pretty crafty from the King of Chaos. Actually, his first form is quite tricky. He's got a lot of moves that are kind of difficult to dodge, including this one where he belches out that weird ethereal breath or whatever. But then you get to his second form. And if you can even believe it, this pretty sweet form of his is actually super easy. His attacks are well telegraphed, don't have that much range, and once you know the tricks to each attack, they're pretty easy to dodge. Kinda disappointing coming from this guy's second form. I mean, you'd think it'd be a little tougher than this. Sure, it looks like I'm taking a lot of hits, but this is during my learning phase, so bear with me. But oh no, this does nothing to prepare you for the third and final phase of this boss. Yep, we're going full-on Harmony of Despair with 3 forms for the final boss. But would you have it any other way? And no, this is the real Mother Hubbard. He's got a lot of strong attacks in this form that take up a lot of space, aren't really that obvious in how to deal with. And, oh yeah, those tricksters are back. And now, dealing with the tricksters and dealing with Discord, not very easy, unfortunately. Sure, Discord's a little slower than Dracula was in the original games, but, even then, it can still be overwhelming. Ice Needle's a pretty good way to deal some damage and heal some health with Artis Sanguinus. It can really help you in this fight. Honestly, this guy's not as hard as Dullahan in The Creature, but he can still be a formidable opponent that you should not underestimate. And after all that, I beat the game with only ice magic. I mean, I could have beaten it with anything, but I like to challenge myself. I kind of like to do a challenge run, and I wanted to do it with elemental mages. I made a whole bunch of them, and I wanted to beat the game with at least one of them. And after you beat him, you get to see the good ending after everything you did. I actually quite like how much of a graceful loser Discord is. It's kind of a nice touch. The game ends with the 2 princesses giving you a kindly send-off with some admittedly decent backgrounds that I don't think are actually from CastleVania, but I could be wrong. And there you have it. You have gotten the good ending in Ponyvania. Honestly, I like I said, I like this game way more than I'd like to admit. It is a very well-made Castlevania fan game, even if it is about My Little Pony of all things. But that's the brony fandom for you. You gotta admire that some of their fans have some legitimate drive, and sometimes they can create something like this. And even though I'm not part of the fandom, I do think that's admirable. But then again, how different are bronies from furries? I mean, sure, bronies are just a fandom based on one franchise, but are we really all that different? I don't know, I feel like I'm not the person to ask that, but that was Ponyvania, and I honestly think even if you're not a brony, this is worth at least giving a try. And until next time, I'm Balf, and the cave is closed.